I wasn't expecting much when I moved into the old brownstone. I just started grad school, money was tight, and the ad on Craigslist said quaint and affordable, which usually meant small and falling apart. But the place had charm, creaky floors and all, and the rent was manageable for a one-bedroom in the city. What I didn't expect was my landlord, Evan. The first time I met him, I actually thought he was a tenant. He was hauling a box of tile into the hallway wearing paint-splattered joggers and a white tank that didn't do a very good job of hiding his arms or the tattoos that ran down one side. Late 30s maybe, early 40s tops. Tall, stubbled. That kind of thick build that comes from actual labor, not gym vanity. "You must be Liam," he said, setting the box down and offering a hand. "Yeah, you Evan?" He nodded. His grip was solid. Warm. "Welcome. Let me give you the tour. Mind the stairs. They groan like an old man." He owned the place but lived on the first floor. Same building. The rest of the units were rented, mostly to students like me or older tenants who'd been there since the 90s. Evan handled all the repairs himself. Seemed like the type who didn't trust anyone else to get it right. We didn't talk much the first few months. He'd nod when we passed each other on the stairs, sometimes ask how classes were going. I'd see him working on the porch some weekends, sanding a railing or recaulking windows with his shirt half off in the summer heat. Nothing crazy, just normal. Until October, when he knocked on my door with a strange offer. "Hey, got a favor to ask." I opened the door, still wearing headphones. "Yeah?" He looked kind of sheepish. "I'm moving out. Bought a fixer-upper out in West Haven. Bit more space, big garage, better for projects. I'm trying to keep costs down, and I was wondering if you'd want to help me pack and load the truck next weekend." I blinked. "Oh, sure, yeah. You need extra hands?" "Just one's fine," he said. Then a pause. "I'll knock $200 off next month's rent if you help." "Seriously?" He grinned. "I mean, if you're down for a few hours of heavy lifting and maybe a beer after?" "Yeah," I nodded. "You had me at discount." "Cool," he said, clapping once. "Saturday. I'll make breakfast." I closed the door and stood there for a second, wondering if that whole interaction had just been a hallucination. It felt casual, but also, I don't know, more intentional than usual. Not flirty, not exactly, but personal, like we'd crossed into something new, and I didn't know what to make of it. And the weirdest part, I was kind of looking forward to it. Saturday came faster than I expected. I showed up at Evan's door around 9 a.m., dressed in old joggers and a hoodie I didn't mind getting dusty. He opened the door in a white t-shirt that clung to him in a way that felt unfair for that early in the morning. "Perfect timing," he said, stepping aside. "You hungry?" His kitchen smelled like bacon and coffee, and he already had plates out. I blinked. "I thought you were kidding about breakfast." He smirked. "I don't joke about bacon." We ate at the small table in his kitchen, sunlight pouring through the half-curtained window. It was weirdly cozy, like I'd known him longer than a few months of neighborly nods. He poured me a second cup of coffee. "So the plan is, I've boxed up most of the kitchen and bathroom. Still got to tackle the bedroom and that back storage closet. You up for some serious closet chaos?" "Depends." "You got skeletons in there?" "Only emotionally," he said without missing a beat. That made me laugh, more than I meant to. Evan smiled, and for a second I forgot this was about helping him move. We started with the storage closet. It was filled with a chaotic mix of old tools, camping gear, and what looked like an unopened box labeled Photos 2005. We worked quietly for a while, and it wasn't until I handed him a folded tarp that he asked something that threw me off. "So you got someone waiting on you back in your apartment?" I blinked. "Like a boyfriend?" He nodded, but kept his eyes on the box he was taping up. "Or girlfriend? Just wondering." "No," I said, a little slower. "Single." Evan nodded again. "Cool." There was a silence that felt suddenly heavy. "What about you?" I asked, trying to play it casual. He let out a soft breath, still taping. "Used to. Not anymore. Got complicated." I didn't push. He didn't offer. But something shifted in the air between us. We moved on to his bedroom, the bed stripped down, boxes half filled with clothes and shoes. He tossed me a drawer of socks to dump into a bin. Hope you're not judging me based on sock variety. No promises, he laughed, shaking his head. At one point, he reached past me to grab a duffel from the closet, and his arm brushed against mine. Warm and solid, just for a second, but enough to send a flicker down my spine. He didn't say anything about it, didn't flinch or pull back too quick. I kept waiting for it to feel awkward. But it didn't. By late afternoon, we'd loaded almost everything into the rental truck parked out front. We were both sweaty and sore, and Evan pulled 2 beers from the fridge and motioned toward the porch. We sat on the steps, legs stretched out, beers in hand. You saved me, he said after a few quiet sips. This would have taken me 2 full days alone. No problem, just doing my part for rent discounts and manual labor appreciation, he chuckled. Still, thanks. We sat in silence again, watching the late sunlight stretch across the sidewalk. Then Evan said something I wasn't ready for. Not many people know this, but this place, it's kind of personal. I inherited it from my uncle, lived here on and off for a while, did all the work myself. Thought I'd never leave. Why are you? I asked. He glanced at me. Because it stopped feeling like home. I didn't know what to say to that. He drained the rest of his beer and stood up, stretching. All right, I gotta do one more trip to the new place. Want to ride with? I hesitated. You need help unloading? Not really, he said. Just wouldn't mind the company. The drive to Evan's new place was about 40 minutes. Mostly highway, then winding roads through a part of town I'd never really explored before. The kind of neighborhood where houses had yards and long driveways, where everything felt quieter. He had the windows down and music playing low, something acoustic and a little melancholy. Not what I pictured, I said after a while, glancing out the window. What's that? You, moving out here? I don't know. Thought you were more a city guy, he shrugged. Used to be. I think I wanted quiet more than I realized. Or maybe just a big garage for all your junk, he grinned. That too. His new place was a single-story house with faded blue siding and a wide porch. Definitely a fixer-upper, but charming in that way HGTV hosts get excited about. The lawn was overgrown, the flower beds empty. It looked like a project, and totally his vibe. Inside, the place smelled like old wood and paint fumes. Most of the rooms were still empty, but the living room had a couch, a few lamps, and a box labeled, Open First. I'm crashing here tonight, he said, dropping the last box near the wall. No bed yet. Might just sleep on the floor like an animal. You didn't bring a mattress? It's coming tomorrow. Movers are bringing the heavy stuff. He disappeared into the kitchen and came back with 2 bottles of water, tossing me one. So this is it, he said, looking around. Home, I guess. It was the first time he sounded unsure all day. You okay with it? I asked. He looked at me, the corners of his mouth twitching. Ask me after I survived my first night here. We ended up sitting on the floor in the empty living room, backs against the wall, tired and quiet. The sun was setting, casting soft gold across the bare hardwood. It made everything look softer, less empty somehow. You don't talk much, Evan said after a while. Is that a bad thing? No, I notice. I'm just used to being around loud people. Someone's got to be the observer. You watch people? I nodded. Sometimes. What about me? He asked, turning his head slightly. What do you see? I let out a slow breath, not quite ready to answer. Someone who works too hard. Sleeps too little. Probably carries too much. He didn't say anything for a moment. Yeah, he finally said, voice low. You're not wrong. There was a long pause between us, the kind where you can feel the next moment sneaking up before either of you acknowledges it. I should head out, I said eventually, but I didn't move. You can stay if you want, he said almost too quickly. I mean, if you're too tired to drive. I've got blankets. Floor's not terrible. My heart thudded a little harder. You sure? He nodded. Honestly, wouldn't mind the company. I stayed. He made us grilled cheese and opened a bottle of wine he found buried in one of the boxes. We ate on the floor, laughing at how it felt like some weird college sleepover. Later, he laid out 2 blankets on opposite ends of the room, but neither of us went to bed right away. We just kept talking. And somewhere between stories about exes and dumb repair mishaps, his voice got quieter. So did mine. We were lying in the dark, the only light coming from the porch outside. You ever miss it? I asked. Miss what? Living with people. Being around someone. He was silent for a moment. Yeah. More than I admit. I turned my head, trying to make out his face in the dark. I get that. Then, softly, he said, Do you? I nodded, not even sure if he could see. Yeah. He didn't say anything after that, but I heard the blanket rustle slightly. The kind of movement that made my breath hitch for no reason. He was close. Not touching, but closer than before. And in that moment, I could feel something shifting. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because the floor was uncomfortable, though it definitely was, but because I couldn't stop thinking about how close he was. Just a few feet away. I could hear him breathing, soft and steady. Every now and then I thought he shifted slightly closer, but I couldn't be sure. The room felt thick with something unspoken, like we were both pretending to sleep just to avoid naming it. Sometime around 3 a.m., I rolled over, facing the direction of his blanket. In the dim light filtering through the curtains, I could make out the outline of his shoulders, his back turned to me. His breathing was slower now, deeper. Maybe he really had fallen asleep. I tried to do the same. The next morning, I woke up stiff and sore, my neck cranked at some inhuman angle. Evan was already in the kitchen, hair messy, t-shirt wrinkled, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Morning, he said, handing one to me. I took it, grateful. You sleep? Barely. You? Same. We stood there for a while, sipping in silence. Eventually, I broke it. Thanks for letting me crash, he nodded. Thanks for sticking around. There was a moment when he looked like he wanted to say something more, but instead he just glanced at the clock. Movers will be here in about an hour. You staying or heading back? I hesitated. You want help? I mean, I wouldn't say no. So I stayed. Again. The movers came and went. By noon, the house was no longer empty. Just chaotic. A couch sat in the middle of the room, surrounded by unopened boxes. The fridge was humming. The silence had shifted from vacant to lived in. We were sweaty and tired again by the time we flopped onto the couch. Evan cracking open 2 more beers. You always rope tenants into your personal life like this? I asked, half teasing. He gave a tired smile. Only the quiet ones who say yes too easily. We sat there, sipping, not looking at each other. And then, out of nowhere, he said, I liked having you there last night. I blinked. At the house? He nodded. Yeah, I've been on my own for a while. Not used to company. It felt good. I looked over at him. He wasn't watching me, just staring straight ahead, like saying that had taken effort. I liked it too, I said, my voice softer than I intended. He finally turned his head, eyes meeting mine. There was something raw there, unguarded. He opened his mouth like he was about to say something else, but didn't. Instead, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was holding something back. There's a reason I moved out of the building. I waited. I got too comfortable being alone, he said. Started turning everything into projects just to avoid people. I thought if I stayed busy, I wouldn't notice how quiet it got at night. I didn't know what to say to that. I guess I'm just saying, he trailed off, then looked up at me. I don't want to be alone all the time anymore. It felt like a confession, like something he hadn't said out loud before. I set my beer down. You're not alone right now. He looked at me again, eyes searching. The silence stretched between us, and this time it didn't feel uncomfortable. Just heavy, and maybe hopeful. That night, I didn't leave. It wasn't even a conversation. It just kind of happened. We stayed on the couch, talking about nothing in particular. His old job before property management, a road trip I took last year, how weird it felt for both of us to not have any background noise for once. When the conversation lulled, neither of us moved. I don't want to make this weird, Evan said suddenly, his voice low. It's not, I said, and I meant it. He turned slightly to face me, one leg tucked up on the couch. I'm not great at this, at saying things. You don't have to. No, I think I do, he said, eyes steady on mine. I like you, Liam. Not just because you helped me pack boxes or saved me from sleeping in an empty house. I didn't know what to do with the adrenaline that hit me right then. I wasn't sure if it was nerves or something better. I like you too, I said. He studied me for a second longer, then gave this small, crooked smile like he didn't quite believe it. And then he leaned in, slow, like he was giving me time to change my mind. I didn't. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, soft, but with a kind of quiet intensity I hadn't expected. He pulled back an inch, like he was checking to see if I'd flinch. I didn't. I kissed him again, firmer this time, and something in him eased. His hand found the side of my face, calloused thumb tracing my jaw. It wasn't rushed or frantic. It was gentle, steady, like he was trying to memorize what this felt like. We stayed like that, close, our foreheads touching. I wasn't sure if I was making this up, I said quietly. You weren't, he whispered. We didn't say much after that. He took my hand and led me down the hall, past half-unpacked boxes and still-wrapped furniture, to a guest room where the movers had dumped a queen-sized mattress on the floor. He pulled off his shirt. I did the same. It wasn't about chillin'. Not that night. We didn't rush into anything. We just lay there, side by side under a blanket, his arm draped over me, our legs tangled. It felt real, honest. There was something about the way he held me, like he wasn't used to letting anyone in but had made the choice to, just this once. I could feel the tension leave his body slowly, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long, and had finally decided to put it down. I don't know what this is going to be, he said, barely above a whisper. Me neither. But I want to find out, I smiled into the dark. So do I, and I meant it. I woke up with his arm still around me. The light was just starting to creep through the slats of the blinds, casting long lines across the wall. I could hear birds outside and the occasional car passing down the road, but everything else was still. Evan's chest rose and fell against my back, warm and steady. For a few seconds, I just lay there, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't some post-moving day fluke. There was something settled in how we'd ended up here. Like two people who'd both gone too long without a connection finally found one and didn't know what to do with it. I shifted slightly. He stirred behind me. You awake? He mumbled, voice still gravelly with sleep. Yeah. He didn't move, just nuzzled a little closer. You comfortable? More than I expected to be. He let out a soft breath of a laugh, and we stayed like that for a while. Quiet, limbs tangled under the blanket, not rushing anything. Eventually, we had to get up. He made coffee. I found 2 clean mugs. We sat at the kitchen island in silence for a few minutes before he finally spoke. I don't really do this. Sleep in on Sundays? He gave me a look. No, I mean this. Let people in. Have them stay. I nodded. I know, I could kind of tell. He looked at me like he was still trying to figure out if this was real. You freaked out? I asked. A little, he admitted. Same. We sat with that honesty hanging in the air. He took a sip from his mug. You're not my tenant anymore, technically. I raised an eyebrow. So this isn't an ethical violation? He smiled. Nope, just a regular bad idea, maybe. You think it's a bad idea? He paused. I don't know yet, but I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. Or that I don't want more of it. I swallowed. Me neither. Later that day, I drove home to my apartment, his old place. The familiarity felt different now. Every part of the building reminded me of him, the worn doorknob, the creaky front steps, the leftover patch of paint he never got around to finishing in the stairwell. I dropped my bag inside and sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, thumb hovering over his name. He beat me to it. Evan. So, dinner next weekend? Me. Only if you let me pick the place. Evan. Deal. But I drive. Me. Not surprised. Evan. And no talking about leaky faucets or how you think I label boxes wrong. Me. Now you're asking for too much. That was how it started. Texting every day. Late-night phone calls. Visiting each other's places. Learning the smaller details. How he always taps the side of his coffee cup before sipping. How I never use the microwave unless I absolutely have to. It was slow, careful. Not some whirlwind thing, but real. The best part? Neither of us tried to define it too fast. He didn't ask me to move in. I didn't expect him to. We were just two people figuring it out, one small step at a time. But every time I showed up at his new place, there was always a second toothbrush in the holder. Always an extra blanket on the couch. Always a quiet kind of welcome in his eyes. And that said enough. 6 weeks later, I found myself back at Evan's new place on a Friday evening, carrying 2 pizzas and a bottle of wine. It had become a routine by then. Me showing up every weekend, him pretending he hadn't been pacing the porch, waiting for me. When I stepped inside, the place looked lived in now. The walls had new paint, the bookshelves were finally up, and he'd actually bought a bed frame instead of just sleeping with his mattress on the floor. He took the pizza from me, kissed my cheek without saying a word, and set everything down in the kitchen. It was strange how quickly something that had started as a one-time favor turned into something that felt like home. We never had a big "what are we" talk. It just unfolded, simple, natural, uncomplicated in a way that made me trust it even more. After dinner, we ended up on the couch, feet tangled, half watching some sci-fi movie we'd both already seen. At some point, I leaned into him and he wrapped an arm around me like it was second nature. "You remember the first time I knocked on your door?" he asked suddenly. I grinned. "You mean the time you bribed me with rent money and a breakfast sandwich?" "Yeah, that." "What about it?" He paused, fingers lightly tapping against my arm. I was nervous. I turned to look at him. "You? You seemed so casual." "That was a bluff," he said, almost embarrassed. "I'd been thinking about it for weeks, trying to find a reason to talk to you without making it weird." "You mean without making it obvious you liked me?" He laughed under his breath. "Exactly." I tilted my head. "And moving out was part of the plan?" "Part of it was real. I wanted a fresh start. The other part, yeah, maybe I wanted to see if you'd come with me, even just for a little while." I didn't know what to say to that right away, so I kissed him instead. Slow, warm, the kind of kiss you give someone when you know you don't have to rush anymore. When we pulled apart, I rested my forehead against his. "I'm glad you knocked," he smiled. "I'm glad you answered." The movie kept playing. The lights stayed dim. And we just stayed there, quiet, comfortable, a little tangled up in each other, in no hurry to be anywhere else. It didn't matter what we were called. It didn't matter that we hadn't put labels on it. We were building something slow and steady. And it was enough.